Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Idea Gen Global Podcast with George Sifakis.
I'm George Sifakis. In a world overflowing with noise, there is one forum where the world's smartest voices connect, where visionaries sit at the same table as innovators, and great minds don't just talk, they act.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
This episode is brought to you by Ulta Beauty. Holiday cheer is here, and Ulta Beauty has gifts for everyone on your list. Treat them to fan-favorite gift sets from Charlotte Tilbury and Peach and Lily. Go all out with timeless fragrances from YSL, Ariana Grande, and Carolina Herrera. And you can never go wrong with an Ulta Beauty gift card. Head to Ulta Beauty for gifts that make the holidays brighter and even more beautiful. Ulta Beauty. Gifting happens here.
Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastas, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hey, welcome back to the show. We're here, and I'm really looking forward to this because I've got a great guest today. I want you to meet someone by a special name, Tiffany. What a beautiful name. Tiffany McQuaid. Hi, Tiffany. How are you? Hold my hands.
Hello,
Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you
a pleasure.
for having me. This is amazing.
You had a book signing. By the way, you want to talk about your book. It's called The Nth Degree. We're going to talk a lot about this because you've got some great inspirational stories here.
Thank you.
But you were at Tiffany's here in New York. Tiffany at Tiffany's doing a book signing. Tell me about that. Well, that must have been fun.
I mean, could you pick any other better spot, right?
I know.
When it's your namesake location.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we decided to launch, and I have been blessed to collaborate on this book with a gentleman by the name of Bruce Littlefield,
Yes.
a very well-known writer.
Great personality.
And he's in New York City.
Yeah.
And there were all these things aligning, and we said, you know what? This is where it needs to be. At the
Fabulous.
flagship store.
Perfect. And it went well, I'm sure, you know.
Oh my gosh, it was magical.
How can you miss? Because, I mean, first of all, I love your personality. I mean,
Thank you.
You are an optimistic person. Yes. You're a business person. You're an entrepreneur. You have a very successful real estate company down in Florida, in Naples, which is a beautiful part of the country.
Yes.
And you do so many things. And I have a lot of questions for you because I like to just talk openly on this show.
Okay.
This book, as I started to do a little background, was inspired in many ways from the time that you were 10 years old. And I was sorry to hear that you lost your father at that age.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience and how that kind of led to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have our stuff, right? You know, we all go through things in life. And when that happened to me, it happened to be 1980. You know, the world was different then.
Oh, sure.
There wasn't therapy per se. You know, there was no real way to deal with a dynamic, you know, where not only did your father pass away, but, you know, it was a choice on his behalf to do so. So, you know, processing that, and there's so much more to the story, which I speak about in the book, but, you know, it was something that was harbored both inside of me, and the family just shut down and didn't speak of him from that point forward.
Wow. That
So
must
I
have been
think
difficult for you.
it was so
Yeah,
difficult.
sure.
And I don't think I really realized how difficult until you start getting older, you know? And then fast forward to our world today, and people are more and more affected by
Very true.
suicide. And, you know, there's so many things going on where people, you know, they're tough. They're on social media and they're posting negative comments.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's all these things coming at us
Right.
where, you know, have all these distractions. And sometimes we lose sight of the goodness.
Tiffany, you're so right. And many times on this show, I mean, we do talk about that. The fact that you can get lost in a lot of these artificial kind of things in life, things that really don't have any substance. And you deal with the reality of life, which I think is terrific.
Right.
But you're an optimistic person, and I love the big O. I love it. I think optimism is so important, and we're being realistic as well. Okay, you can't just say everything is terrific and not deal with reality.
Yes.
But if there is a problem, let's find a solution.
Yes.
And that's what you're trying to do with this book.
Yes.
The Nth Degree, how to stand out by going all in.
Yes.
How did you come up with that title? I love that.
Well, I actually have a slogan in my office, and we call it real estate to the Nth Degree. Because we like to push ourselves to more and better and, over and above in everything that we do. So we kind of spun off from the Nth to the Mth, and then here we are back in in regard to this book.
And you have a lot. I was looking at 7 steps.
Yes.
Inspiration, invigorate. Those were 2 that stood out for me.
Yes.
Talk about the 7 steps, okay? Which one is more important, or are they all important to you?
Well, honestly, in putting this all together, it was these keys are all things that I've utilized to turn myself and my mental capacity around because I could have very easily, allowed my life to unfold in a way that I was bitter and cynical. I've had multiple blows over my life, lots of failures and falls and
But we
fears.
learn from that, don't we, Tiffany?
Learn from them.
We grow from these. I call them learning experiences and not mistakes. And you did that.
Right. Well, and you know what I've learned over all these years? My optimism is not born. It is learned, and every day I get up and I work at it. Every morning before I even start my day, and I like to say it's like training for the mental Olympics. I work on it all day, to pull myself out of a negative space, which happens pretty quickly. We believe the negative things quicker and easier than the positives, right? 1,000 positive comments could easily be taken away by 1 negative.
That's all it takes. And people know, I mean, we call this show Positively Ernie. Yeah. And many times when I'm interviewed, people will say, what is it? How do you stay positive? Is there a secret to it? Yeah. And it's basically what you said too. I have to work at it.
Yes.
Because fundamentally, I think my personality is optimistic and positive. Yes. But this is life, and there are going to be some problems, some issues, whether it's family-related or business or whatever it happens to be, your work. Yeah. But you have to pick yourself up, don't you?
Yes.
You have to lift yourself up and make yourself feel. But it also depends on who you hang around with.
Well, and your energy, I can feel it, and I think that is something that people don't do is they're not very selective about who they have around them. Your circle is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely.
And if you're, closest to a negative Nelly, that every time you talk to them, things are not good or, what have you, you're not going to change that person. But what you can change is how you respond to them and how you engage or not. And really protect that. In today's world, I think that's the most valuable asset.
Yeah, and you also talk about, in your narrative and in your book, you talk about helping others.
Yes.
How important it is to step away from yourself.
Yes.
And look at other people and say, I can help here, I can make a difference.
Yes.
Just tell us why that's so important.
Well, I would factor that under key 7, which is influence. And influence in today's world, we think of it as influencers. Yeah. Social media, people that are drawing people in and getting attention. To me, influence and influencer is you in and of yourself have the capability and the capacity to make a difference in someone's world very easily. It could be as simple as a smile. It could be as easy as just sending, an Uber Eats delivery to a neighbor that is not feeling well, or, making a few extra meals when you cook for, someone who may be elderly or whatever that could be. It's about thinking through how you can put a smile on someone's face, that when you do that for someone else, it comes back.
It does come back to you.
Yeah,
it does.
And it alters the course of your day.
Yeah, and you know what, Tiffany? A lot of people, probably listening now and watching us and saying, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
But you know what? It happens to be the truth.
Yes.
And we also know, and I want you to elaborate on this because I know you have a lot of experience working with so many people, that what we're talking about, these principles, actually work.
Yes.
They make a difference. Yeah. And when you don't use these tools, you do feel a difference. Yes. You're not as happy. Yeah. You're not as satisfied. You're not as joyful. You don't have as much happiness in your life. And I think it makes a big difference to be able to step out. And, I did a story recently about narcissism and how social media is contributing to that. Because it's okay to be part of social media, but many times people get on there and it's all about, well, look at where I am, look at what I'm doing and so forth. And that's too much of self.
Yeah.
I'm sure you agree with that.
I
We have to be careful with that, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. You know, there's a fine line, you know, in all of that for sure. And I think we go through these dynamics and, you know, go through life and our day to day, and you're wanting to strive, you're wanting to achieve, you're wanting to be your best self.
Yeah.
But sometimes your best self goes back to those principles and practices that are standard. You know, you hear them from people like Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay,
I love
Gabby
these people.
Bernstein.
Oh, my goodness.
Abraham Hicks.
My heroes.
You know? Yeah, all of mine too.
Absolutely.
And the difference is, as much as in my mental Olympics that, you know, I've got Tony Robbins in my head and all these people, you know, my story, my hope is that it will enlighten these principles and practices in a different way.
Good.
I noticed that there was a void in all of these. So I'm hoping that I'm going to fill that void, you know, with what we know.
You are.
We know
Yeah, right.
is actual and factual, and that it works, you know, but maybe this is a different way for people to hear it.
You know? You mentioned a couple of names there, you know, Wayne
Yes.
Dyer, who I love, Louise Hay. I mean, these are great people. But there is a kind of an underlying factor in a lot of what we're talking about. And it doesn't mean to turn people off,
Right.
but it's something called spirituality.
Yes.
And that's believing in a higher being.
Yes.
And I think that's important. I'm looking at you, and I'm telling you the truth. I'm looking at you, and I'm saying, this is my sister. We come from the same source, right?
We do.
We know, and that source is love. No matter what you want to call the source, it doesn't matter. It exists, and it's love, and it's compassion, and it's wanting to do good for one another. And I think if we have that, you know, if we have that kind of, we're missing a lot of respect today. Oh, there's so much hatred and anger. It drives me crazy. And if it comes down to the fundamental principle, and I want you to elaborate a little bit about how you feel when you look at other people and you say, we're connected, man. We really are connected for real. And there's going to be a time when we're all going to be gone, but to a higher place.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, and I am a huge believer in divine intervention, however you desire it to be. You know, whatever you believe in is your higher power.
Sure.
So I'm not here to guide anyone on that. But what I am here to say is, aside from leading with love in your real life, you know, in your day-to-day, which you hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. I think that's the main key.
Yeah.
You know, but also in your business. If you're an entrepreneur, you know, I think that's the biggest challenge that I see in businesses right now.
Tiffany,
is
did
that
I
the
read-
heart is gone.
The heart is gone. And did I read, was it 14,000 new startups, like what, every day or every...
Yes.
In this country alone?
Yes.
So how do we help them? What do you do to inspire these? Because you run a very successful real estate company down in Florida, in Naples.
Thank you.
So what advice do you have for those people who are saying, I've got a dream, okay, and I want to make a success out of this dream that I have? How do we help them? How do we encourage them?
Well, number one, if you were given a dream or a thought or an idea, you were given it for a reason, and that's for you to try it and push forward and do it. But here's what I found is the difference. You can get through any and all obstacles when you own a business and a company, at least from my experience, and understand I don't have all the answers, but from my experience, you can get through so much when you're choosing to work with people that you have grown to care about, genuinely care about.
Yeah,
They're
genuinely.
not just employees, but you are committed to their success. You're committed to letting them and inspiring and guiding them to be their best selves in whatever respective industry you're in. You know, it makes such a difference in your day and how you move forward. But also, you know, kind of putting yourself in that stance of heart equates to passion.
Yes.
So no matter how bad it gets, if your heart's in it and your heart's in the right place, passion will be there. And when it gets bad, the passion will drive you through and drive you forward.
For sure.
My mom always said, if you work hard and do the right things, the money will come.
That's right. It'll follow you. You don't have to go chasing it.
Yeah.
You know, when COVID really was at its peak in 2020, I took a year off and did a program at Harvard Business School. And I was studying leadership. And one of the things I remember from a lot of good things that the professors, you know, gave us was when you're talking about leadership, you're talking about listening to other people.
Yes.
That's how you become a leader, by listening from what you just said, listening to others, finding out what their needs are, and giving them an opportunity to become and to grow. Some guidance, but at the same time, allowing them to be. I know you've heard this line, if you're a manager, if your door is closed, you have problems.
Yeah.
If your door is open, you have solutions.
Yeah.
So we have to do this, what
Right.
you and I are doing right now.
Yeah.
We listen to one another. And if there's a disagreement, we find a way to understand one another and to respect each other.
Yeah.
So true, isn't it?
Well, and I think as a society,
Yeah.
and especially when it comes to the workforce, people tend to hire for a role as opposed to hiring a person that has the right energy, has the same passion, goals, and then you work the role and the position around them and their capabilities to ensure that they feel good about what they're doing. You know, I think that's a big misconception is that, you know, we try to put a lid on every pot as opposed to just kind of sometimes letting the pot boil and see where it goes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about young people.
Okay.
Because I've written 2 books.
Okay.
The History of Teenagers in America, and I did a book for young kids, Ernie and the Big News, The Adventures of a TV Reporter. And it fundamentally talks about positive thinking and things that, you know, make our world better. Speaking of young people, I did a story recently about how college graduates today, young people, are having a very difficult time getting a job. And one of the reasons, according to the expert, is that a lot of these young people come into the interview totally unprepared. They don't have the communication skills to be able to talk to one another.
Right.
So they're not able to speak because they're on the telephone and they're doing a lot of things, you know, digital.
Yeah.
And they also come in many times, can you believe this, with a parent. This is a college graduate coming into an interview, a job interview, with their parent, so their parent can speak for them. And the managers who have been, you know, surveyed said they don't come in properly dressed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in sweats or in jeans.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's happening, and what can we do to help our young people? Because they deserve a better chance in life.
Yeah.
They really do.
Well, and that's a spectacular question because I personally have experienced that, not from the point of the parent showing up, but the person showing up and saying that they wanted to speak with their parent before they decided to move forward with anything or what have you. But exactly what you said, it's an issue. You know, I think we're dealing with a dynamic where they're going through school and graduating saying, I've got my degree, now hire me for top dollar, you know, because I've got this degree,
Right.
you know, but they're forgetting about this basic steps to gain and garner experience. You know, to me, especially for my company and what have you, the degree isn't as important to me anymore. And I suspect that's kind of happening a little bit in certain industries as much as the experience and the efforting.
Yes.
So exactly what you said, showing up looking sharp, because you can only be your best self when you're feeling amazing,
Of course,
right?
exactly, yeah.
You know, if we were doing this interview in our sweatpants or jeans and, you know, my
it's
hair
a different
pulled
feel.
back. Yeah.
Different feel to it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, you want to project being your best self. And for those just kind of coming out of school now, you know, sometimes you have to take a lesser pay position
Right.
to garner that experience, learn and absorb everything you can. Because each step, and I think, you know, I know for you too, that's where we were able to do everything that we've done thus far is because we went through the trenches. You know, we did, I worked 3 jobs and put myself through school full time,
me too.
you know, working a midnight drive at a radio station on top of 2 jobs and full time.
But
Kids
this is
today
what
don't do that.
No, but that's what made you, okay?
Yeah.
That's what gave us that sense of self-confidence to learn from these experiences. And, you know, you're in real estate. And I did another story on the air about how a lot of young people, sticking with the subject, a lot of young people today cannot afford to live on their own. And they're living with their parents. Because they just don't have the money and they don't have the resources to be able to do it.
Right.
There has to be an answer and a solution to this. And I think doing programs like this, listening to you, you know, seriously, you've written a book and have had your own experiences and my experience in broadcasting, to be able to help whoever it happens to be, whether it's a young person or an elderly person, to be able to become the best that you can be.
Yeah.
The best that you can be.
Yeah. and do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That to me is also the difference with the youth. You know, they're not willing to exert the extra effort. They're not willing to push themselves to the nth degree. You know, they want to relax more and just let it come to them, which, you know, if you're manifesting, I suppose that's a really good thing.
Yeah, sure.
But you also, you know, you also need to do the work. And, you know, the work comes with taking the punches, you know, preparing yourself to be, and I think, you know, they're not as strong mentally as we were when we were younger, you know, going up. We were, you know, hit by balls playing kickball and, you know, all of
But
these
you got
things
up.
but you got back
Exactly,
up.
exactly.
You know, you played Red Rover and you got knocked down, but darn it, you were back up racing for that line.
We need
right?
we need to reinstill that, you know,
Yes.
in whoever it happens to be, young or old, it doesn't matter. And I'm sure you've heard that line, every setback is a setup for a comeback.
Comeback, yes.
And I think that we have to apply that principle. I love teachers, and I think that they play a major role in our society.
Yes.
And I think that they can help a lot. Kids
Yeah.
spend a lot of time, as you know, in school.
Yeah.
And that is a great source for them to understand themselves emotionally, socially, and to be able to grow and develop. I'm very high on the educational system, and I think we need to put more money into that. I think many times our country is giving money away to a lot of places that perhaps we don't have to.
Right.
I don't want to get into a whole political argument about that, but I think that, you know, our schools are very important. We need to help our teachers, you know, who are not, you know, they're working really hard and they're not being paid enough. But I think we have to inspire them with a lot more. I know someone who just became a teacher, and I was shocked. She said to me, you know, she said, this is my first class. And I said, yeah. She said, well, I had to go out and buy all my things. I said, like what? She said, I had to buy, you know, some books, and I had to buy some paper, and I had to buy some pencils and so forth. They buy their own. Yeah, these are
I
school
did not
systems.
know that.
They're buying their own things. The schools
Wow.
are not supplying it for.
Wow.
So, I mean, we need some help there. I love America. And I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Tell me what you think is the best thing about America, the best thing about living in this country. Tell me what your thoughts are. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously born and raised, I'm from Ohio originally,
Hey,
you know, living
the
in
Buckeye
Florida.
State, yeah.
Yes, we all, you know, fly south at some point, I think. But it was an incredible place to be raised. And, you know, I think the most beautiful thing to me about this country is no matter where you live, you know, there's little nuances about each part of the country. You know, prime example, me being in New York, you know, I'm in Florida. It's beautiful. I love the sunshine. I thrive in the sunshine.
great.
You know, I'm one of those people that just need
Yeah.
light, and it helps light me up from within. But what I also need is a visit to New York City every few months, quarter, because I need that injection of energy. You know, I need that to creatively stimulate me. And I think as a country, you know, here we are encompassed with all these pockets of opportunity, and each one's so unique and so special that it's a matter of finding what you need, you know, going within, so to speak, figuring out what makes you tick. And there's somewhere in this country that you can visit to fill that cup or refill that cup or whatever it would be. And I think that's the beauty of this country. It's just...
Well said. I love that.
Thank you.
Tiffany, do you have a hero? Do you have someone that you admire?
Yes.
Who would that be?
Well, my hero is Barbara Corcoran.
Oh, Barbara, sure.
Yeah.
Shark Tank.
Yes.
Big real estate mogul, absolutely
Yes,
successful.
yes.
Tell us about Barbara.
Well, so I actually met her accidentally 20 years ago. And I was just kind of starting in the real estate industry at the time.
Yeah.
And I was reading everything I could get my hands on. Every kind of book, you know, I believe knowledge is power, right?
Sure.
So I was doing the work. And my mom had passed away. And a few months later, this book popped up on Amazon, back when Amazon was just a bookstore. Remember those
sure.
days? Yeah. And it was called Use What You've Got and Other Business Lessons I Learned from My Mom by Barb. And actually co-written with Bruce Littlefield, who is also on my
involved.
blog.
Yeah, Bruce is great.
So I immediately emailed her. I read the book cover to cover when it came in one day. Couldn't put it down. And, I just so connected with her. Her brain's very similar to mine, very creative. And so I emailed her, which I've never done before.
Yeah,
so
right.
this is a true testament to sometimes you just got to do things unexpected.
Just do it.
Right?
Yeah.
And she responded right back. And I've considered her my fairy godmother. Ever since, she's had her thumb on the pulse of my business for 20 years.
Good relationship.
And it's incredible. I mean,
Wonderful.
talk about a blessing. But I think, it kind of had a little divine intervention, I'm sure, from my mom. Because if it weren't for that, the title resonated with me.
Yeah, I like
when
that story. It's
saw
a
it.
nice, warm connection. I love the elements that you're describing. Do you have a quotation that you kind of use every so often that you really like? What would that quote be?
I have several, but I will tell you probably the one that resonates with me the most is to be successful, be excellent. If you want the best the world has to offer, then offer the world your best.
Oh,
and
who said that?
is
Where did that
Oprah.
come from? Oprah.
Yes.
Sounds like Oprah.
But then I have one from Barb that always resonates with me, and it is ignore the naysayers on everything. Anything fresh and innovative makes them uncomfortable, and their unintentional job is to clip your wings. Isn't that good?
Beautiful.
That one has saved me more than I care to count, but the Oprah one is on my wall at the office.
And you look at these things, you repeat them often, right?
Well, they're on my wall.
Yeah,
at the office.
You got right up there. I have one that I like. I mean, there are several. I love quotations. They say a lot in a few words.
Yes.
They're very important. Don't go where the path may lead. Go where there's no path, and leave a trail.
Love that.
Leave a trail.
I love that.
Isn't that nice?
Yes.
To go someplace and try things and not to be afraid of that.
Yeah.
It's never too late to be what you might have been. There are a lot of people, who had a dream to do certain things in life. Yeah. It's never too late to try that in some form. In some form, you can say, let's say I've always wanted to be a painter, an artist, and it's later in life. You still can try it. Yeah. You may not become, the renowned artist, but at least you'll satisfy whatever that hunger is, that desire, that passion from within. Yeah. I believe in that. To me, it's what keeps me young. And there's another great quote. You're going to get me going now because I don't stop with these quotations. This is a Greek philosopher.
Okay.
Who said, "I have a wish to die young, but as late in life as possible."
Oh my God.
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
So what is that telling us, Tiffany? It's saying you have to have a youthful heart, a youthful spirit.
Yeah.
You can't feel like I've been there, done that, and it's over. You have to always be looking towards something new, a new path. Yeah. Tell us about where you're going to go with your book, because this is a terrific book. Wow. And we met Bruce. He's in the studio here today, Bruce Littlefield. The Nth Degree, How to Stand Out by Going All In. Okay, Tiffany McQuaid. You're going to make a tour? You're going to be on tour?
Well, things are unfolding right now, so we'll see where they land. But believe me, we're going all in on it and going to put our best foot forward. And hopefully, my hope is that we can help as many people as possible. And if they just walk away with one little nugget or a handful of nuggets of inspiration and how they step into their day, then it will have been an incredible success.
Well, this was an incredible interview. I enjoyed you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
I always like to hold hands because it connects us together. I thank you for being on my show. Tiffany McQuaid, success with your book, success in life, and good things to you and to your family.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Back at you.
You bet. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Payne Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.